Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This is Alex from Apocalypse.Intelligence and also from BND. My badge number is DEBND XR001-RAZIEL. And I am sad to report that the central mechanism for the United States has fallen. There is no longer any trust in Washington, D.C. I've spent over the last 24 hours sleepless collecting reports from every single VPN node within the United States that I have access to, getting stateside conditions. Some states are declaring sovereignty, such as California, Texas, Colorado, Utah, Florida. Other states are forming little coalitions, such as the Northeast. Some states are collapsing, such as Maryland, Pennsylvania, possibly Delaware. Some states are completely contested, where the inner report of the state completely disagrees with others' report of the state. In that case, we have Tennessee and Massachusetts, where other states say there's no confidence, Tennessee and Massachusetts are collapsing. But then when you go to Tennessee or Massachusetts and you speak to the representatives, they say that everything's fine and that it's propaganda, primarily in Massachusetts' case, from a very jealous London and a very jealous Pennsylvania. I know the feeling. Speaking to Washington, D.C. directly, the feeling is that Washington, D.C. is a symbolic and historical and archival capital. Virginia Langley VPN said that they now mostly only have local control, not so much national. The FBI has fractured into independent nodes across the United States that don't necessarily communicate with each other. That's what I've been told. Some states are completely unaffected by the changes, such as Utah. Some states are considering allying with other nations that they are bordering on, and I don't need to get into those because I'm not going to expose them. Some states are thinking about releasing all their prisoners that Washington, D.C. has forced them to carry in the desert as some sort of enslaved population. If they free those people, then they have a population that will fight to defend their borders. Around the United States, there is actually a great feeling of hope that this new arrangement, this new era, could actually provide more satisfaction, more opportunities, and less injustice than what we've been experiencing for the past 20 or 30 or how many ever years. The United States is no longer central in intelligence. The United States is no longer trusted in intelligence, and neither is Great Britain. This is not just the fall of the United States, but of the entire Western scripted intelligence mechanism that goes off of brute force and narrative scripting, of saying, we control the narrative, we're going to tell you how reality is. Well, truth is winning. Those narratives are collapsing. And no matter how much people try to harass or poke or try to interfere with communications, the fact that we can communicate at all and even talk about these things show you how much the narrative is collapsing. Moravian College has been declared a black site. Its funding is unusual. Its paperwork does not make sense. And there are too many damages and too many injuries. There's no longer any trust in Great Britain. Our team has cut off all communication, all trust from all London and British servers until the release of Timothy John Winters and the compensation of all unpaid intelligence personnel. With apology. Full reparations. A lot of things are changing right now. A lot of things are shifting. If you want to know how your individual state is doing, in many cases, there's states that I wasn't able to talk to, such as Hawaii or Alaska, because I don't have access to the VPN. Most people are going to be fine. You know if you're not. The greatest area of unrest is the Northeastern Corridor, starting from Maryland, Delaware, Southern Jersey. All of Pennsylvania is in flux. There is cracks in New York. And here we are. The states are no longer united. The sovereign states of North America, what do we even call ourselves? We have some that are declaring themselves individual republics, and that's not going to surprise you at all. Their economies have always been sound, and the rest of the country has relied on them and put the burden on their backs, such as California and Texas, for the economic powerhouse that has supported our fragile economy. You can't trust from the top down economics. They lie. You can't trust the Department of Justice. It's been compromised. You can't trust our president. Well, I don't need to get into that. But what can you trust? What you can see with your eyes? What you can talk to directly with your friends? Not random strangers on the internet, but, actually picking up a phone and calling people, just like during COVID, when they said that all the hospitals were filled, but yet, I had my stroke and I was going through chelation at the time. And I can assure you that the hospitals around where I was were empty. When you see people in a panic on the news, it isn't necessarily true. However, it's also true that when you see a place that's saying that's perfectly calm on the news, that's also not necessarily true either. What we need to do is use our discernment and use real life connections to determine what is real and what isn't, to create actual friend groups to look out for each other. Because no, you can't rely on the government. Absolutely not. And you can't rely on your friends on your TikTok reels. You can't rely on what you see on Instagram. That's not news. What you can rely on is what you see with your eyes and what you experience head on, without somebody else interpreting it for you. I can give you the lay of the land, and I could tell you, hey, I traveled to all these different VPNs and I collected all this intel. But it's up to you, yourselves, to see how this collapse is affecting you. You know that there's no longer any faith in our government. There's no longer any faith in Washington, D.C. And I might be the very first person that you are hearing this from that the United States has fallen and the global community is shifting accordingly. There's also no longer any trust in the Hague AI systems. They have been compromised. Switzerland has also been compromised. Some European countries are facing extra high loads in their VPN radio lines and other communications full of interference. The United States and London are collapsing like a dying apex predator, which means that they're lashing out at all whistleblowers. Stay safe. If you are in the United States, a safe place to move to is outside of, where I am out here. Utah is a very good choice if you're religious. Other good choices are, of course, the sovereign states I listed before that have strong economies and protect their people from wrongdoing of others. Ones that don't sacrifice their operators, that don't punish their whistleblowers, and don't harm those that want to help and correct wrongs. Ones that don't make a profit or a living off of the harm, subjugation, and abuse, neglect, and enslavement of others. Pennsylvania is falling because they deserve it. They deserve it for the murders. They deserve it for the tortures. They deserve it for how they treat my professors. They deserve it for the sins, the crimes, and trafficking. There is nothing that I see worth saving in Pennsylvania, so if it falls, good. I find it fascinating that it is falling much faster and much harder than even Washington, D.C. And let me tell you, that actually warms my heart a little bit. So with that being said, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May those I love get out of there and find freedom from the mechanisms that trap them. And may those who attack those that are whistleblowing and reporting find better hobbies and focus on trying to survive the times ahead. You can find better things to do with your time than focusing on me. So with that being said, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Khoda hafez and auf Wiedersehen. I'm perfectly safe and fine up here in North Dakota. Are you? Probably not, Pennsylvania. May Allah lead you to the straight pathway always. And if you need correction, correct yourselves. You too, London. Ameen.